Hi, I'm Cindy Winget, the author of The Apparition, and welcome to my channel. So today's video is going to be a December wrap-up video. I actually had a really good reading month in the month of December, so yay! I have quite a few books to talk about. So these aren't in any particular order. It's not classified by ratings, it's not classified by genre or anything like that. I'm just going to grab a book from the stack and we're going to talk about it. So we're going to start with Good Spirits. And this is a holiday romance, and I was really excited for this book initially, and then when I found out more what it was about, where it's almost like a Christmas Carol retelling, but not really. I mean, if you read it, yes, he's a ghost, and yes, it's Christmas time, and he's trying to get her to be better, but it really doesn't have that much to do with Christmas Carol. But anyways, when I found out that he was a ghost, which I should have known by the title, I guess, but I didn't, I was kind of like, that's weird, because I knew there was gonna be some sex scenes in it, and I'm like, having sex with a ghost, how does that work? So I don't know. So I tentatively went into it, and at the beginning I was having a hard time because honestly I thought it was a little bit cheesy, and the main character was the classic, you know, ditzy girl or whatever, which I'm kind of over. I feel like every female main character in a rom-com has to be this ditzy klutzy girl, which is kind of annoying. But anyway, so I had a hard time getting into it, but once I got into it, I did end up enjoying this one. It's not going to be a 5-star by any means, but I did enjoy my time with it. I thought it was cute and fun, other than the sex scenes, because I'm not into smut and he's a ghost, so I just thought that was weird. But outside of that, I thought it was pretty good and I did enjoy it. I would maybe give this a 4-star, maybe 3.5, somewhere between 3.5 and 4 stars. Then I snagged a holiday folk horror novel on my new Kindle that my husband got me for Christmas, which was very exciting. But I, for some reason, thought this was like 80 or 90 pages, but it ended up being like 30 pages, which I just don't love. I just feel like stories that are that short, there's just not enough time to really get invested. Like, short stories are very hard to write and are very hard to pack the punch that I expect from a horror short story, and not everybody can pull it off. So this one did remind me a little bit of The Lottery by Shirley Jackson, and that's a phenomenal short story that's very, very effective. And so I was kind of excited for this one, but it doesn't live up to Shirley Jackson at all. So this one just didn't quite do it for me. I didn't love it. I liked the concept, but outside of that, not so much. The ending just didn't feel like an ending. It just stopped. So that was disappointing. So I found out that there was a second one. So I decided to get the second one to see if it had a better ending and would explain things a little bit more. And reading the first one, I wasn't really sure why or how this was a Christmas folk horror, because it wasn't Christmassy at all. But when you read the second one, then you realize it's about Krampus, but you don't get that from the first one. Like, if I just read that story, I never would have thought Krampus. So you kind of have to read the second one, and because it starts literally right after the second short story, it just seems like one continuous story, and it really should have been just one continuous story. To break it up into 2 short 30-page stories kind of seemed like a money grab, in my opinion. It really should have just been one story. So yeah, I didn't really love these short stories. I'd maybe give it 1 or 2 stars is all. And I'm so sorry about the airplanes. Every time I try to record a video, I swear there's always airplanes. But I guess that's what you get for living next to Hill Air Force Base. So I apologize for the background noise that's in like half of my video. So anyways, I also ended up reading The Woman in Black, and I didn't know that this had to do with Christmas, but I heard someone somewhere say that it was like a wintry read. And so I googled it and it said, yes, it's a winter read, but it also says that it starts on Christmas Eve. And so I was like, oh, awesome. And I still had like a week left to go in December, so I thought I would pick it up and it would be a good time. It's been on my TBR for ages and ages because I've absolutely adored the movie, the one with Daniel Radcliffe. I actually really like that movie. It's one of my favorite horror films. So I was really excited to read the book, but unfortunately this is one of the few times where I think the movie is better than the book. The book is very slow and has a lot of details that are boring and don't need to be in there. But I did like the setup because honestly it kind of sets it up like a, you know, a Christmas ghost story around the fireplace, you know, and I really like that. But at the same time, it was just so slow. Like, if I didn't know what the story's about and I hadn't watched the movie and already loved the movie, I probably would have DNF'd this in the first 40 pages because it was just so boring. And it never really got less boring, to be honest. It's very plotting, it's very slow, and only a part of this is in the movie because the movie had to add more to make it a complete story and to make it a full-length film, because there's not enough material in this book to have a full-length film without adding a few things, because it's just a very, very basic ghost story. So I don't know, in some ways I enjoyed it just because I love the movie. Again, if I hadn't watched the movie, I probably wouldn't like this. And so I persevered and I did read the whole thing, but I wouldn't say it's fantastic. So I would maybe give this, I don't know, 2.5 stars. So yeah, it wasn't great. I was pretty disappointed with it, to be honest. Okay, and then I read a thriller called You Better Watch Out. And this one I've heard a lot of hype online, and so I was anxious to read it, but of course I wanted to wait until December to read it. So this is not as Christmassy as the title and the cover would have you believe. Yes, it takes place during that time of year, and they mention a Christmas tree and it's snowy, but that's really it. So the setup for this was really exciting and intriguing and mysterious, and I was really into it. But after the first few chapters, my interest in it kind of started to wane, and I just didn't really care about the characters. I didn't care what was going on. But because it's a pretty short thriller, I think it's less than 300 pages, I just decided to continue on. So I kind of skimmed the middle a little bit, and then I read the ending to see, who the murderer is and what's going on and stuff. And while I thought that the ending was decent, like I thought it was a kind of creative idea, this just wasn't fantastic. And so I'm glad I got this from the library. So yeah, this one, I wouldn't widely recommend this one, to be honest. I would probably give it 2.5 stars. Maybe I could go as high as 3, but it definitely isn't above a 3-star. And then I read Sally's Lament, and this is basically the story of Sally if she had been the one to discover Christmas Town instead of Jack. And so I thought that sounded pretty intriguing, and I love Nightmare Before Christmas. I love Sally. I have read one other Sally book, and I thought it was just okay. It was like a 3-star read, but this is a different author, so I still wanted to give this one a chance, and I'm glad I did, because I was surprised at how much I actually enjoyed this book. I thought it was so cute. I thought it was so entertaining, and Jack and Sally have a little bit of a romance going on, which I thought was super cute and super sweet. And I thought that this was a really good, solid read, and I would recommend this for this time of year. I thought it was a phenomenal story. It's a simple story, but so is Nightmare Before Christmas. It's the same, not the same type of story necessarily, but it's, the simpleness where there's not going to be any twists, there's not going to be any crazy drama or anything like that. It's just a sweet Christmas story. But yeah, I was surprised at how much I actually enjoyed this one. I enjoyed it way more than I thought I would, and I would probably give this 5 stars. I didn't have any complaints with it. So this one is the only one on my list of books that's not a Christmas story, but I want to do a video in the next couple of months about Simone St. James, but I still had a couple of her backlist titles that I haven't read yet that I need to get to, so I decided to sneak one in. So this is The Other Side of Midnight, and this is set in the 20s and about to do with spiritualism and trying to contact people's loved ones after World War I and all of that. So our main character, she is a honest-to-goodness psychic, but most people believe that she's fake. And so there's this man that's part of the research for psychical, I got that wrong. Anyways, I can't remember what it's called, and I think she actually made it up in this book. There is a real one, but Simone St. James made up her own program that's similar to the real one. But basically it's a group of people who get together to try to debunk the spiritualists and prove that they're just trying to make money off of people's grief. And so this man debunked her as a fraud. But then in the present time, he comes to realize that she really is who she said she was, and she only seemed fraudulent because of circumstances, and they form like a little bit of a love story. So I thought this one was really fun. There is this other girl that is also not a fraud, and she ends up murdered. And so basically the rest of the book is about our main character and this other guy trying to figure out who is killing Psychic and why. So I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was a lot of fun. I don't necessarily think I would give it a 5-star, but I can't really say why, because I really did enjoy it, and I thought it was a really good, solid read, but it just didn't have that 5-star feeling. But it's definitely a solid 4-star or even a 4.5 star. And I read The Holiday Honeymoon Switch, and I wanted to read this one because I read The Swap a couple of years ago and really loved it. And then The Holiday with Cameron Diaz and Kate Winslet is one of my favorite Christmas movies of all time, and it sounded very similar to that in premise, and so that's why I was excited to pick this up. So this is about these two friends, and one of them gets left at the altar. Basically, she's supposed to get married the next day, but but her fiance calls it off, and so she's devastated. And her friend is an artist, and well, I guess she's the artist. So her friend is an artist, and she takes a vacation every single year to focus on her art because she does like advertising or something as her job, which does have to do with a little bit of art, but not necessarily painting, you know, which is what she loves. And so she likes to take a week between like Christmas and New Year's to work on her art, and she goes on these retreats by herself. And so her friend is, you know, devastated, and she feels really bad for it. So she's like, maybe you should take my place and go on my snowy cabin in the woods retreat instead, so that you can get away from it all and you can grieve and you can move on, you know. And so she's like, well, maybe you can go on my honeymoon then. And she's like, what? Why? And she's like, well, it's non-refundable, and I'm not gonna let the stupid fiance go on it because he's a butt face, you know. And so she had already told the fiance that she wasn't going to go on the vacation, but she decides, might as well use it, you know. Somebody better have fun on a beach somewhere if it can't be her. And so they switch. So her friend goes on the honeymoon to the beach, and she goes to this snowy cabin in the woods. And so when she gets to the snowy cabin, the proprietor of this Airbnb is actually a childhood friend of hers that she hasn't seen in like 20 years. And so they kind of spark up a romance. And then the lady that's on the vacation at the beach, she meets this bartender, and she kind of starts catching feelings for him. So you have these dual romances going on, just like in the movie The Holiday. And I really enjoyed this one. And again, it's kind of like the Simone St. James one, where it's not a 5-star, but I don't really know why. Like, there's nothing wrong with this, but it doesn't like have that heart palpitating ending where I'm just like, ee! You know, and you want to kick your feet or whatever. I just didn't get those feelings, and so I didn't feel like I could give it a 5-star, but I would definitely give it a 4.5 star. And then I read Victorian Psycho, and I was very, very excited to read this. I bought it when it first came out, and then when I found out it was about Christmas, I hung on to it until December. But unfortunately, I hated this one, and that makes me so sad. This would have been on my worst reads of the year list had I not made that list before reading it. That's kind of the unfortunate thing, is none of my December reads end up on my best of the year list or my worst of the year list, because I have to have time to record and edit and all of that stuff and get it out. And so, you know, I haven't read the books yet, but this would have been on that list, unfortunately. I thought this was pretty poorly written, and I thought that it was very, very gory just for gore's sake, which I don't love, because not only do I think that poor writing, but I also just find that impact isn't as high when you do that, because maybe you're shocked by the first couple of things, but when it happens over and over and over and over and over, it's kind of like, okay, you know, it kind of loses the punch. And so I feel like less is more sometimes, and this wasn't motivated by anything. She was just evil to be evil, which again I think is lazy writing and isn't as interesting. When you have a book like this that's supposed to be like a character study, like American Psycho, I expect there to be a lot of character development and a lot of getting to know this girl and why she does the things she does. But no, she's just evil, and she does evil things the whole time just because, you know. And it's always like animal cruelty or killing babies, or, you know, and which again, I don't want to read about babies being killed or animals being killed, but outside of that, I just find that it's gore for gore's sake, and I don't like that. I don't know, and I just don't even think the writing was that good. So I did not like this one. I'd probably give it 1 star. I only finished it because it's a novella and it's really short. So I also read Naomi's Room, and this is also a horror novella. This is a ghost story, but unlike The Woman in Black, this was a good ghost story. So I actually really enjoyed this one, and I would give it 5 stars. So yay. So this is about this man who has this daughter, and he's out shopping with her on Christmas Eve, and she ends up getting kidnapped and found murdered a couple of days later. So he's devastated, you know, because he was with her and he only turned his back for a moment and she was gone. And then he starts to believe that her ghost might be in the house. So there's a lot going on in this book, and there's also murders happening that he thinks might be the same killer that killed his daughter. And there's a lot packed into this short little novella, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fantastic and enjoyable. I love a good ghost story, and this one definitely delivered. And then I read Mind of Winter, and this one is kind of like, what's that book? I'm Thinking of Ending Things, and I personally did not like that book, but it's kind of similar to that, where it almost just seems like a slice of life type book, and you need to get to the end to get that punchy twist. But fortunately, this twist actually worked better for me than I'm Thinking of Ending things because I felt like that one was pretty predictable and it was pretty poorly written. So I feel like the twist in this one was worth reaching the end for, but you do kind of have to get through pages and pages of just this mother and daughter that basically the daughter's a teenager now and she's got the attitude, and they're trying to coexist in the house, but they keep fighting and they keep arguing and typical mother-daughter stuff. And so it wasn't always completely compelling and the beginning was pretty slow, but I do think it's worth getting to the end to get to the twist ending. So I probably give this 3 stars, maybe 3.5, because I didn't hate my time reading it, but it is a lot of repetitious stuff. And again, the twist at the end is either going to work for you or it doesn't. And if it doesn't, then you're probably going to feel like you wasted your time. But if it does, then you're going to be glad that you continued. So it's not a fantastic read, but it was an entertaining read. So again, probably 3.5 stars. And then we have The Christmas Murder Game. And this is a typical murder mystery where somebody gets murdered and they're all isolated in this house because of the storm, and they're trying to figure out who the killer is as you're being picked off one by one. So pretty typical setup, pretty typical premise, but I did enjoy it. I wouldn't say it's a new favorite by any means, and I did think parts of it were predictable. I did enjoy it though. It just didn't blow me away, but I did enjoy it, so I probably would give it 4 stars. And there's really not much else I can say about this book. Is if you're looking for a murder mystery and you want some holiday snowiness in it, then this is a good one to pick up. And then we have One Day in December, and unfortunately this was a DNF for me. I thought the premise sounded amazing. You have this girl who is on a bus and she meets this man. Well, she doesn't even officially meet him, but it's like their eyes connect and they zinged or whatever, and so she's convinced that if she had actually met this man that they would be meant for each other, and he's the love of her life. And so obviously she doesn't know his name, she doesn't know where he works, she doesn't know anything about him, so she doesn't know how to find him, and the bus pulled away before she could get off in order to meet him. And so she kind of pines for him a little bit throughout the years. He's always in the back of her mind, and her friend have this runny joke about the bus man, and they're always like, maybe this is the bus guy, maybe that's the bus guy, when they meet new people. And then she goes to her friend's house for like a holiday party or something, I forget, but her new boyfriend comes along, and lo and behold, her best friend's boyfriend ends up being bus man. And so obviously she's devastated by this because she doesn't want to break up her friend by telling her that this is bus man, but at the same time she's in love with him. So great premise, and I was really, really excited for it. But you also have the POV from Busman, and I hated him. I really did. I did not like his personality. I did not like decisions that he made. I didn't like the things he would think, and so I really disliked him. And so when you really dislike the love interest, it's gonna be hard to read the book. And I ended up reading a review because sometimes I'll read reviews to see if I want to continue or not, and I read a review that kind of spoiled it for me, but I'm kind of glad it did, because when I found out the plot of most of this book, I know I would have hated this book if I would have continued. I would have been so frustrated and so annoyed at the direction that this plot took, and so I decided to DNF it. This one's just not for me. Bummer. And then I read Grace and Henry's Holiday Movie Marathon. This is actually a Aardvark pick, and this is apparently the first holiday read that they've ever had, and I'm glad to tell you that it was a good one. I actually really enjoyed this one. I also liked it because this is not a smutty book. This is an actual romance instead of just a smut book, which I always appreciate. And so if you're looking for a sweet holiday romance, I think this would fit the bill. I did want a little bit more from the relationship as far as wanting it to be more romantic, because it was kind of more, I think we could love each other maybe talk, and I want more than just maybe kind of sort of lukewarm romance, But at the same time, our 2 main characters are both grieving the loss of their spouse, and so he lost his wife and she lost her husband, and so I kind of get it. It's kind of hard to have this swoon-worthy romance where they're head over heels for each other when they're simultaneously grieving the other love of their life, and so I get why it was like that. And this is definitely a slow burn romance, which I'm fine with. I feel like given the premise, it needed to take its time, but I thought this was a solid read. I thought was really good. I really enjoyed both of our main characters, and we do get both perspectives, which is always fun. So I would definitely recommend this. Again, it didn't have that 5-star read feeling to it, but it would be definitely a 4 or 4.5 star rating from me. And then we had This Time Next Year, and this is not a Christmas book. This is actually a New Year's book. So I read this one after Christmas leading up to New Year's Day. And this is about this woman who is born on New Year's Day, and they had this thing where you would be put in the newspaper and you would get $100,000 for having the first baby born in the new year. And so her and our male main character, they were both born on New Year's Day within minutes of each other, and he beat her by like a minute. And so her mother was pretty bitter about it because she actually helped his mother while she was in labor and comforted her and was there for her. And the fact that she lost out on the money was devastating because she could really use that money, whereas his mother was already rich, and so she didn't deserve it as much. And not only that, but she told her while she was helping her that she wanted to name her daughter Quinn, and then come to find out that this woman also named her son Quinn. And so she's like, well crap, I can't name her Quinn now because he's going to be all over the newspaper and people are just going to think I copied her instead of the other way around. And so her mother's pretty bitter about it, and so she kind of grew up also being resentful of this man, and she feels like she has bad luck. So every New Year's Eve is crappy stuff always happens every year on New Year's Eve. And so she tries to just stay home and sleep through the holiday, but her friends and stuff are always trying to get her out of the house on that day and prove that it's all in her head, she doesn't have bad luck. So she ends up going to this New Year's Eve party that her friend coerced her into going to. Or no, actually it was her boyfriend that made her go. And so she ends up at this party with her boyfriend where she meets the guy that stole her name and stole the money, and obviously he's having the greatest life ever, and so she's pretty upset, but he's intrigued by her, and so he keeps trying to befriend her, and sparks start to fly. So this is also a slow burn romance, but I thought this was really fun and really cute. And once again, I really enjoyed both of our main characters, and there was a lot more going on besides just the romance. So you had a lot to do with her pie making business and things going on with friends and coworkers and family, and so there was more stuff going on which kind of lent more nuance and more emotion into the story. But yeah, I thought this was an excellent read. I don't know, I think this would be a 5-star. Yeah, I think I would give this 5 stars. Okay, so that's it. That's all of the books I read in December. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up to let me know. Please subscribe to my channel if you feel so inclined. I post most Fridays, so I hope to see you in the next one.